dear viewers, and welcome to yet another interesting edition of the program CAC Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and the achievement of the Corporate Affairs Commission. My name is Amina Jibril. Coming up on CAC Weekly, CAC holds refresher training for approving officers. Also, Compliance Institute of Nigeria drums up support for CAC's beneficial ownership disclosure principle. Plus, we will x-ray limited liability partnership, a new form of business registration. But that will be right after this break. Do stay with us.
Since 3rd January of this year, to register a company in Nigeria, you can do it through a lawyer, an accountant, or chartered secretary. Or if you are the owner of the business, you can do it yourself. And I didn't make this policy. It's actually a government policy because of our ease of doing business initiatives. Government is concerned, or has been concerned about the cost of doing business. And the cost is not just limited to payment of CAC fees and payment of stamp duties. The major component of the cost from analysis carried out is actually the professional fee that is being paid to either a lawyer, accountant, or chartered secretary. Whereas CAC may charge you 10,000 naira for a company with 1 million share capital and 7,500 naira stamp duty. Most professionals don't even tell you what you're supposed to pay as professional as statutory fees. They give you a lump sum. Sometimes that is even 10 times higher than the cost of actual registration. And from survey, most countries across the world, you don't require any intermediary to register your business. So because of that concern, government decided to make it optional. If you choose to go through a lawyer or accountant or chartered secretary, fine and good. But there are ordinary people that may not even have the capital to invest. They register in anticipation. Sometimes somebody has to borrow the money to even pay the registration. Why should we impose an additional burden on that person to go through a professional to register his business if he can do it himself? So because of to address them, to allay those concerns, government decided to make it open. But even with that, because of the old law, there was still a challenge. Because the law required that at the point of registration, you must depose to a declaration that the requirements of the law has been complied with. And only a lawyer will depose to that declaration. So we have to devise a method in-house using our own lawyers to depose to these declarations.
Now, welcome back to the program. We begin today from the Asian city of Kano, where the Compliance Institute of Nigeria, CIN, says making the beneficial ownership disclosure a requirement for company registration by the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, is crucial to the success of the fight against corruption, banditry, and illicit trade. The president of the institute, Boliaga Patterson Binadega, stated this in Kano during the one-day CAC customer and stakeholders training on the beneficial ownership disclosure principles and electronic filing system for the filing of financial statements by registered entities. Patterson Binadega stressed that Nigeria's fight against many vices would be won by leveraging the opportunities being provided by the CAC reform initiatives. He therefore applauded the giant stride and called on the customers, stakeholders, and the public to continue to support the Commission as it continues to modernize its operations in line with global best practices. Speaking on the beneficial ownership disclosure principle, the Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, said the initiative was to support the present administration's fight against corruption. As a result, Alhaji Garba Abubakar recalled President Muhammadu Buhari's commitment to the Open Government Partnership Initiative at the London Anti-Corruption Summit in 2016. On the electronic filing system, Garba Abubakar revealed that the accounting software drew inspiration from the Extensible Business Reporting Language (XBLR) standard in line with global best practices, and added that the system would be made available to other regulatory bodies in the country to ensure synergy. In his remarks, Damilola Awe of GMD Centrifuge Information Technology Limited, a software developer, described it as an online accounting filing system by CAC supported by EU Act for regulated entities such as CSOs, NGOs, integrated trustees, private limited liability companies, and other business entities. Damilola Awe said the EFS is an offshoot, a module or feature addition of the parent software company registration portal, CRP, that allows annual financial statement filings electronically. Earlier, in a presentation by Priscilla Urukwe and Helen Oduma of Oasis Management Company, spoke on the imperatives of the beneficial ownership disclosure principles. In a remark, Femi Olorunyomi, Deputy Director Academics, Nigerian Law School, Kano, applauded the reform initiatives of the Commission and urged it to visit law school campuses across the country to highlight some of the reforms. Femi Olorunyomi said the call was necessary in view of the various innovations introduced by the CAMA 2020 and the ever-increasing complex nature of company law in Nigeria and the world. During the event, goodwill messages and presentations were received from NBA Kano, Icon Kano District, Icon Duse District, and NASME, amongst others. Now, CAC Weekly reports that most of the stakeholders and customers who spoke at the event were full of applause for the CAC and therefore urged it to ensure continued and frequent engagement and sensitization. And now we move on to capacity development matters. Name search or availability search, depending on preference, is the first step to registering a company in most jurisdictions around the world. This activity can make or mar a good business intention, as mistakes are often made by prospective registrants or the company's registry of choice. Inadequate guidance or understanding of the fundamentals of name approval may frustrate the whole process. Hence, it is against this backdrop that the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, organized a 3-day refresher training course on back office application and effective communication skills. Declaring the training open, the Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC Alhaji Garba Abubakar, said the training was aimed at broadening the horizons as well as ensuring effective communication between them and customers. Alhaji Garba Abubakar, represented by Tolulope Adiola Shonaike, the Assistant Director, RG's office, stated that the training was designed to reduce avoidable errors from both users of the company's registration portal, CRP, and approving officers in order to further strengthen the current administration's ease of doing business initiative in the country.
The law requires that every year we must hold a meeting to be designated annual general meeting. And yet we have the situation that is upon us where we cannot meet. Annual general meeting should be open to everybody that is entitled to vote, right, and attend the meeting. So if everybody who is a shareholder for public companies generally is supposed to be at that meeting, if you are entitled to attend the meeting and vote. And then the invitation initially started with 20 persons, and then it went on to 50 persons. And here is the law saying everybody must attend the meeting or have an opportunity to attend, to speak and be heard, to vote on issues. And that's the situation that says we cannot gather more than 50 people at a time. So at that time, it became necessary to find a way to also help players in the industry, in the system, comply with the law. So that was why that proxy notice on the use of proxies for AGMs for public companies was issued. But that situation has since passed. So it was necessary to also issue another notice to vacate that that requirement there. So that notice also came out. You won't find it in your guidelines. No. And so you need to know that beginning from the end of this year, beginning 1st of January, there will be no need anymore for public companies to seek the approval of the Commission to hold AGMs, whether in the ordinary form or by use of proxies.
In an opening remark, Helen Oduma of Oasis Management Company, the facilitator, described approving officers as image carriers and voices between the CAC, the general public, customers, and users of the CRP application. Helen Odoma, further described approving officers as judges, therefore charging them to always act within sincerity, clarity of mind, dedication to duty, and of course, the most reasonable skill of justice to arrive at decisions. Speaking to CAC Weekly at the end of the training, some participants said it was a rewarding experience and that it should be held frequently. CAC Weekly reports that 250 staff were expected to benefit from the training, which was to be both physical and hybrid. Still talking training. As a follow-up to a customers and stakeholders training on the beneficial ownership disclosure principles to further strengthen the present administration's fight against corruption, the CAC organized a 2-day training on open government partnership principles for senior executives in Nasarawa State. The Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, said the training was aimed at acquainting participants with OGP principles, which preaches transparent, patriotic, inclusive, and accountable governance. Garba Abubakar maintained that the initiative was to further support President Muhammadu Buhari's commitment to the Open Government Partnership initiatives at the 2016 London Anti-Corruption Summit. He added that over 77 countries and over 100 local governments representing more than 2 billion people and thousands of civil society organizations were signatories to the OGP initiative. Some participants who bore their minds to CAC Weekly applauded the initiative and described the experience as worthwhile. We now shift gears to talk about a new form of business registration pursuant to CAMA 2020. Our esteemed viewers may recall that the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, commenced the registration of 2 new forms of business registration on the 31st of August 2021. The development followed the successful deployment of the online application for limited liability partnerships, LLPs, and limited partnerships, LPs. The Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, had earlier informed us that the LLP is a partnership arrangement with legal personality separate from the partners, and added that the liabilities of the partnership of an LLP were limited to the amount agreed to be contributed or outstanding in the event of winding up. The RG said an LLP shall have at least 2 designated partners who will be responsible for compliance with the requirements of the Act by the LLP. For more on the new arrangements, let's now go to our interview segment where Mr. Justin Nidiabirahol, the Director of Compliance, tells us all we need to know about limited liability partnership. Enjoy.
Mr. Justin Nidiabirahol, Director Compliance Corporate Affairs Commission. Good to have you on the program again, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I know before now we've talked about, LP, that's the limited partnership, and the LLP before now. But for people who are just listening to us now, or for the first time tuning into this program, help us break down what the LLP is all about. That's the limited liability partnership.
Okay, like you rightly said, the 2 forms of what we call business management organizations, the limited liability partnership and the limited partnership.
That's the LP.
Yes, innovations that were brought in by Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. Now, if we look at the limited liability partnership specifically, what we would note is that first of all, we could describe it as a hybrid business management organization. Hybrid in the sense that it partakes both of the characteristics of what we call the orthodox partnerships and that of a limited liability company.
Okay.
Yes. So what we want viewers to note is that basically the limited liability partnership is a partnership, and by partnership we mean a relationship, a business relationship where 2 or more people come together to pursue specific objectives. But like we say, being a hybrid, it also partakes of the characteristics of what we call the limited liability companies. Two of them stand out. One is that it is considered as a legal person. And what that means is that it has a life of its own. It can enter into contract in its own name. Then it also have what we call perpetual succession. That is unlike the partnership, which or the sole proprietorship, which actually dies with the death of
the owner.
The owner. The limited liability partnership does not die with the life of any of the partners.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, I thought hybrid terminology is only found in the agricultural sector, but it's interesting that you also find it in business registration. But let's come back to the thinking behind you know, a limited liability partnership. What is the thinking behind it?
Well, the thinking behind it is that any person that desires to tour along that line, that is to have that type of business organization, will partake of the basic advantages of both the limited liability company and the partnership. Like we have said, one of the advantages of the limited liability partnership is that it can enter into contract in its own name, so it is a legal person. And we also say that it has perpetual succession. It doesn't die. So for the partnership, one of the advantages it will have is that it will have what we call flexibility of decision making. Unlike the company, which are required to have what we call structured meeting, that is the annual general meeting and the extraordinary general meeting. For the purpose of the limited liability partnership, they can easily meet and take decisions.
Okay.
That is one advantage. Another advantage is that they are not their income or the income of the business is not subjected to tax at two levels.
Okay. What do you mean by tax at two levels?
For the company, for instance, if you register a limited liability company and you make a profit
Of say 200,000.
or say 200,000. First of all, the company will be subjected to what we call company income tax.
Yes.
So, that company income tax is a certain percentage of profit before tax. Then when that one is done and dividends are declared and would be paid to investors in the company, the dividend is also subject to what we call withholding tax. So you can see that there is company tax and there is withholding tax that will be taken from the dividend of the shareholders. But for the partnership will not, because it is a partnership, will not be subjected to what we call the company income tax.
Okay.
So they will only be
Subjected to pay withholding tax.
Withholding tax on the profit that will be given to them.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay, I will come back to that. So let's come to some of its features. For people who are listening to us and saying, what kind of grammar this one's coming up again with? We already know of the limited liability company. So what makes it different from a limited liability company? What are some of the features that distinct it from a limited liability company? Because it also carries limited liability.
Yes.
It's only that there's a P at the end of this and there's a T at the end of the other one.
Yes. Well, when we look at the Companies and Allied Matters Act, it clearly gives us the features of the limited liability partnership. And one that would easily come to mind is the one that says it should have a minimum of 2 partners, okay, and that it should also have what we call 2 designated partners who must be individuals, and one of whom must be resident in Nigeria. Okay, so that is from the law. So for the purpose of distinction between it and the limited liability company, what we could also note is that unlike the limited liability company, you don't pay stamp duties for the registration of a limited liability partnership.
Okay.
Yes. And what we rather have instead of the memorandum and article of association is what we call partnership agreement, or more technically called deed of partnership. Yes.
Okay. So let's go to some of its benefits. You did say earlier that because they are partners, they will not be subjected to pay company tax.
Yeah.
They will only pay withholding, tax on the profit made. But if you're going to convince somebody who wants to register for a limited liability partnership, what exactly will you be telling him are some of the benefits beyond the tax issue, beyond not paying double tax? Say?
Well, he will also have the advantage of what we call limited liability, in the sense that if, for instance, they agree in the partnership deed that they will bring XYZ capital into the business, that will be captured in the partnership agreement. So his liability is going to be limited to the amount agreed to in the partnership deed. So,
Okay.
so
help us break it down. Help us make it clear. For instance, if you and I are registering for a limited liability partnership,
yes,
how much am I expected to bring and how much are you expected to bring?
that will depend on how much we agree. As the
Okay, so let's agree on something now.
No, assuming we agree, for instance, that it is 1 million naira
That we want to contribute.
that we want to contribute,
Yes.
and that that 1 million naira will be shared 50 in the ratio of 50% between the two of us.
Okay.
And what that means is that I will be expected to bring in 500,000.
And I will also bring in 500,000.
500,000.
Okay.
And what that means is that since that is the maximum capital contribution, if for any reason the partnership goes under, then I will not be required to pay over and above 500,000, which is the amount agreed to be contributed as capital contribution.
Okay.
So that is what we mean by limited liability. So my liability will not go beyond
the 500,000.
the 500,000.
Okay. So let's come to the issue of registration itself. Help us break it down. What is it like? The procedure of registration?
Well, for the registration, you will first of all be required to do the availability for which is the requirement for registration of every other business management organization with the commission. You will, once you have a name, you pass it through the database to see whether another person has already registered that name, and if not, it will be approved to you. From that time, you can now go and prepare the partnership agreement. Now, if by chance you have not prepared the partnership agreement, there is what we call a default partnership agreement contained in a schedule to the CAMA. So if for any reason you have not filed partnership agreement in the course of registration, the law will deem that you have adopted the schedule, which is Schedule 15 of the Act. And that is what will govern the management of your limited liability partnership.
Okay.
So once we get the approved availability or the name, then you fill the online form. Once you fill the online form with all the necessary details, you also submit it online. And it will be vetted. Once it is vetted and there are no queries, it will be approved and registered.
Okay.
And the e-certificate will be sent to your dashboard,
Okay.
which you can print if you want, or which you can save for
use the soft copy.
soft copy. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Justin Idia Barrow, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right.
And that's a wrap on this week's edition of the program CAC Weekly. We do hope you enjoyed watching. Now, for comments and inquiries, do take advantage of our social media handles and our helplines. Remember, on Twitter, it is at CAC Nigeria 1. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Corporate Affairs Commission. Our email is cservice@cac.gov.ng. Our website is at www.cac.gov.ng. You could also reach us via our helplines on the numbers 081-822-99016 or 081-822-98971 or 090-874-01598 or 090-874-01599 and 090-874-01600. See you next week, same time and same station for yet another interesting edition of the program CAC Weekly. I am Amina Jibril. Bye for now.